शिवाय।
गुड मॉर्निंग, नमः शिवाय।
ओम नमः शिवाय आचार्य जी।
ॐ सदाशिवसमारम्भाम्
शिवसमारम्भाम्
आचार्यमध्यमाम्
मध्यमाम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
अस्मदाचार्यपर्यन्ताम्
वन्दे
वन्दे
गुरुपरम्पराम्
गुरुपरम्पराम्
ॐ सहना भवतु
सहना भवतु
सहनौ
सहनौ
भुनक्तु
भुनक्तु
सह
सह
वीर्यं
वीर्यं
कर्वावहै
करवावहै
यस्मिनावधीतमस्तु
तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु
मा
मा
विद्विषावहै
विद्विषावहै।
ॐ शान्ति
शान्ति
शान्ति शान्तिः.
Hey,
Tat Sat. Om Namah
Om
Shivaya. Thank you for your patience.
Shivaय.
Okay. So, where were we? We had completed verse number 36. And we are on verse number 37. So, we will chant. Sri Bhagavan Uvacha
श्रीभगवानुवाच
Yattadagre Vishamiva
यत्तदग्रे विषमिव
Pariname Mritopamam
परिणामे मृतोपमम्
Tatsukham Satvikam Proktam
तत्सुखं सात्विकं प्रोक्तम्
Atma Buddhi Prasadajam.
आत्मबुद्धिप्रसादजम्।
Okay. So, Satvikam Sukham Proktam. That Satvika Sukham is said to be Yat Eva Vasham. Eva Vasham. Which is like poison, agre, in the beginning, but Pariname Amritopama becomes like nectar, Amritam at the end. And this Sukham is obtained how? Atma Buddhi Prasadajam. It is the born out of the blessings of Atma Jnanam. So Buddhi is Jnanam. Once you get Atma Jnanam, then that is Satvika Sukham. So very, very important idea. Agre Visham Eva. It is very difficult in the beginning because it involves a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work. Therefore, Visham Eva, it appears like poison, right? All of us know that anybody who is, excellent in his own field, you can take people like great singers, Mohammad Rafi, Lata Mangeshkar, or you can take world champions in chess or world champions in tennis. You are only seeing the success. But if a person is effortlessly doing something, you should know that there is a background to it. It has been backed up by hours of daily practice, which we call sadhana. So true skill is effortless, they say. They say true skill is effortless, but it only appears effortless. There is no lack of effort. You have to pay the price for any skill. And that price is by way of constant practice. So spiritual success is the same. You have to come to Gita class every Sunday. That is not sufficient. You have to revise the portions every day. When you are in the 18th chapter, you should be spending some time from Monday to Saturday revising the other chapters. Wherever you have doubts, you should clarify. And then you should do Nididhyasana for assimilation. And therefore, lot of hard work. And therefore unpleasant. So he says, Agre Vishamiva. It is like poison in the beginning. But Pariname, at the end of the efforts, when success has been achieved, Amrita Upama. It is like nectar. It is compared to nectar. Upamam, comparison, example. And that Sukham, that Ananda, has two stages. The first is the achievement of Chitta Shuddhi. Sadhana Chatushta Sampatti. That itself gives you a certain amount of ananda by way of a quiet mind. But later comes the Atmananda. Both are Sattvika Sukha. And this comes through repeated practice. We saw this earlier. Abhyasat ramate yatra. By repeated Shravanam, Maranam, Nididhyasanam. Remember that after sufficient Shravanam and Maranam, whenever you do Shravanam again, that itself can be classified as Nididhyasanam. And this Sattvika Sukham is Amritam. And here the Atmajnanam, born out of Shravanam, is called Amritam because it helps you understand that you are not subject to death, that you are immortal, and therefore Amritam. Nectar is supposed to make you immortal, right? Nectar of the gods. And Atma Buddhi Prasada Jam, born out of Atma Buddhi Prasadaha, of the blessings of Atma Buddhi, of blessings of Atma Jnana. And that Sukham, which is the result of all the discipline, Satvikam Sukham, is defined as Satvika Ananda. And now we go to the next verse number 38. Vishayendriya Sanyoga
विषयेन्द्रियसंयोगात्
Yattadagre Mritopamam
मृतोपमम्
Pariname Vishamiva
परिणामे
परिणामे विषमिव
Tatsukham Rajasam Smritam
तत्सुखं
Rajasam Sukham Tat Smritam. Know that to be Rajasika Sukham Yattad Agre Amritopamam, which is like Amrit, nectar in the beginning. Agre, in the beginning it is like nectar, but Pariname Vishamiva, it is like poison in the end. And how is this Rajasika Sukham born? Vishayendri Sanyoga, with the contact of the Vishaya, sense objects. Sanyogam is the contact. So Vishaya, Indriya Sanyogam, born out of contact between sense organs and sense objects. And we know that we have 5 Indriyas, and therefore there are 5 Indra Vishayas. So that must be very clear. 5 Indriyas we have, and 5 Indriya Vishayas, 5 objects. There are 5 objects of the Indriyas. What are they? Shabda, Sparsha, Rupa, Rasa, Gandha. All of them will definitely give you Ananda, right? And because it is born of the contact of the Indriyas with the Indriya Vishayaha, it is called Samsarja Bhogaha. You can certainly enjoy them, right? Shastra never says, do not enjoy worldly pleasures. It's a very big mistake to think that Shastra says, become a sannyasi and don't enjoy anything. Even sannyasis can enjoy. But here we are saying, it's not necessary to renounce all enjoyments. Enjoy them certainly. But don't make one critical mistake. And what is that mistake? Of thinking that they are permanent. Why? Because they are born out of contact of the indriyas with the indriya vishayaha, sense organs with the sense objects. No contact is permanent. When the sense object goes away, the enjoyment also go away. And when that enjoyment goes away, what happens to the ajnani? There is a emptiness. A vacuum has been created because that object is not there. Right? You can also relate to this better if you consider the Vishaya as a person who is very dear to you. When that person goes away, there is a vacuum. You say, I am lonely. I feel so lonely. And in Hindi, they say, the walls are running towards me to bite me. So, there is a vacuum generated. And because of the vacuum, sorrow is created. So these are the unavoidable consequences of Rajasika Sukha, of Rajasika Ananda. There is always sense of emptiness when the object of Ananda goes away, and that sense of emptiness leads to sorrow. Right? So he says, Yattad Agre, in the beginning, Amritam Upamam. It will fascinate. You will want to enjoy it again and again and again. So Agre is initially. Amrutopamam is Amrita Upamam, comparable to Amritam, nectar. So you can understand this by taking the example of a very worldly thing which I like. What is that? Strawberry ice cream. So in the beginning, I can eat 1 cup, 2 cup. I love it. But when I start eating the 10th cup, what happens? The taste begins to become disagreeable. And sooner or later, I will even dislike the sight of it. Because initially it is very enjoyable. Later on, it is like visham, like poison. And there is another part to it also. Even if it's an object such that you will enjoy it all the time, let us say, that doesn't make you disgusted at all. There is another problem also. What is that? Brings about a separation. No object is permanent, whether it be your car or your house or your wife or your husband or your children. Time will either separate the object from you or you from the object. And therefore, Kala brings sorrow always. So here, Samyogaha, the connection, the contact is because of Kalaha, time. Vyogaha, the separation is also because of Kalaha. Kalaha, time is the creator of the connection and the instigator of the separation. And therefore, Krishna says, Pariname Vishameva. The consequence of any sensory pleasure is ultimately Vishameva, like poison. And therefore, Tat Sukham Rajasam Smritam. Such a pleasure is Rajasika pleasure. So, should I totally give up Rajasika pleasure? Not feasible, not practical. What should I do? Keep Satvika Ananda as a backup, right? So we have used this word. Atmananda is like a UPS. What's a UPS?
Uninterrupted
Uninterrupted power supply, but here it is
Oh, uninterrupted
uninterrupted
pleasure
uh,
supply,
pleasure supply. Yeah,
right?
in this.
So when this is not available, when your object of pleasure is not available outside you, you should be able to look inside. That is what is said. Okay. Now, Shankara explains this particular. There was a sound just now. I hope you guys are still hearing me.
Yes, Acharya ji.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
okay,
we
because
can.
some sound was there. I thought some disconnection took place. Anyway, thank you. So Shankara explains Pariname eva Visham. He gives a long compound. Bala, Virya, Rupa, Prajna, Medha, Dhanaha, Utsaha, Hani, Hetutvad, Adharma, Tajjanita, Narakadi, Hetutvad. Huge compound. Okay, so what is the Bala, Virya, Rupa, Prajna, Medha, Dhana, Utsaha, Hani, Hetutvad. Balam is strength. Viryam is energy. Rupam is form or beauty. Prajna is knowledge. Medha is wisdom. Dhanaha is wealth. Utsaha is enthusiasm. Hani hetutvat. This Rajasika Sukham is the hetu, is the cause of the hani, of the destruction of these qualities. Bala, Virya, Rupa, Prajna, Medha, Dhanaha, Utsaha. They are destroyed by Rajasika Sukham. Hani hetuhu. That Sukham is Hani hetuhu. And therefore, what is the problem? Adharma tajjanita tarkadi hetutvat is the cause of adharma, and the cause of going to Naraga, going to the regions below, to the lower regions. Shankara's very beautiful explanation. What is meant by pariname eva visham? What is meant by the idea that it is like poison in the end? You don't find these sort of explanations anywhere else. There, 39 verse, we will chant. Yadagre chanubandhe cha
यदग्रे चानुबन्धे च
sukham mohanamaत्मनः
सुखं मोहनमात्मनः
निद्रालस्य प्रमोदोत्थम्
निद्रालस्य
प्रमादोत्थम्
प्रमादोत्थम्
तत्तामसमुदारतम्.
तत्तामसमुदारतम्.
So now tamasika sukha. We have finished with satvika and rajasika. So the third one is tamasika. Tamasam sukham tat udharatam. That sukham is said to be tamasic, which atmanaha mohanam, which confuses, which deludes the mind. Atmanaha here is mind, so which deludes the mind. Agre cha anubandhe, in the beginning as well as in the end. So when your mind is deluded because of some kind of ananda, not only in the beginning but also in the end, which means also in the middle, which means your mind is constantly deluded. And how is this kind of sukham born? Nidra, alasya, pramada, uttham. Uttham is born out of what? Nidra, sleep, alasya, laziness, pramadaha, negligence. Right? And when is it born? Agrecha. At the beginning itself, this is born. Anubandhe also. So Anubandhe here Shankara defines avasana kale. Means avasana uttara kale, he says. Which means and later uttaram, and later avasana kale, at the end of the pleasure. So not only is it born at the beginning of the pleasure, it is also born, it also remains at the end of the pleasure, which means throughout the enjoyment of that pleasure, this delusion remains. And tamasam sukham tat udharatam, that is said to be tamasam sukham. Why? Because yat mohanam atmanaha, it dulls the mind, it deludes the mind. So tamasika ananda, how do we experience? That ananda is experienced in nidra, right? Remember that happiness, total ananda, can be experienced in sushupti avastha. Right? There you have no worries because your mind is not present. So there is total absence of dukkham because you are under your own swarupa. And it is as if Atmananda is present, but what is the difference? The mind is asleep. Asleep means the mind is covered by tamas. Because your sleep, remember, is under the influence of tamas. And the sleep is necessary because it takes away tamas. Therefore, during Sushupti Avastha, your mind is under the influence of tamas. And because the tamasic influence is there, the Atmananda is not recognized by the mind, which is not awake. And therefore, tamasika sukha. So the first experience of tamasika ananda is in Sushupti Avastha. Then alasyaha, laziness. So what does alasya mean? I don't do any karma. Therefore, I don't have any karma phala. So it's a perverse sort of a sukham. I just lie around. And since I don't do anything, there is no karma phalam also. This is also tamasika sukham. And then there is pramada, negligence, right? I don't care if people around me are dharmic or adharmic, or I am adharmic or I am dharmic. I don't. Such people is basically, it's a fatalistic attitude. I don't accept that I have a free will. I don't believe that I can do anything out of my free will. I don't believe that I can influence my future. I say everything is predestined by karma. And such people can also be spiritual, right? So they can quote Yad Yad Bhavyam Bhavata Bhagavan. Whatever happens is the Lord's. Let it happen, O Lord. Yad Yad Bhavyam Bhavata Bhagavan. Whatever has to happen to me, let it happen to me, O Lord. But he forgets that there is a second line. What is that?
Karmanurupam.
Purva Karmanurupam. You are telling the Lord that whatever happens, let it happen to me, but let it happen according to my karma only. But this man, he doesn't believe in free will. He doesn't believe that he has capacity to do anything. Therefore, his whole life is Nidra Alasya Pramada. There is a nice Shubhachitam, I don't know if you guys have heard it. Kavya Shastram Vinodena Kalo Gachati Dhimata. Kavya Shastram Vinodena Kalo Gachati Dhimatam. Vyasanena cha murkhanam Nidraya Kalahenava. Vyasadena cha murkhanam Nidraya Kalahenava. So Kalo Gachati Dhimata. Dhimata, one who has got intelligence, the wise man. Kalo Gachati. He spends his time. How? Kavya Shastra Vinodena. Happily he spends his time. How? Kavya and Shastram. In the study of Kavya. Kavya means the arts. And Shastram, of course, is Shastram. That is the way the wise man spends his time. What about Murkhanam, the foolish one? Vyasanena, evil passions. He indulges in evil passions. Nidraya, sleep. And Kalahenava, and quarrels. Right? So this man forgets that animals can enjoy only tamasic pleasure. Animals can never have sattvic pleasure or rajasic pleasure because they do not have a free will. And therefore, the person who has a free will, the human being who has a free will, but does not accept it and enjoys the tamasic life, that person is equivalent to animal. What is the message that is giving Bhagavan? Oh Lord, make me an animal in my next life because I am only fit to be one. So this is the idea. Don't do this. Make sure that you understand that you have free will and act accordingly. So now remember that these are only samples, right? That taken for guna analysis. But there is no anatma which is free from three gunas. Why?
Maya is Trigunatma.
It is all born from Maya, which is Mama Maya.
Maya is anatma. Maya is triguna. Anatma is triguna. Right? And this is what Krishna says in his next verse. In the 40th verse, we will chant. न तदस्ति पृथिव्यां वा
न तदस्ति
तदस्ति पृथिव्यां वा
विदेवेषु वा पुनः
देवेषु वा पुनः
सत्त्वं प्रकृतिजैर्मुक्तम्
सत्त्वं प्रकृतिजैर्मुक्तम्
यदेभिः स्यात् त्रिभिर्गुणैः Okay. So, Deveshu va divihi. Among the devas in Divi, Divi is heaven, Swarga, among the gods in heaven, va punaha, or again, Prithivyam, on the earth also, na tat sattvam asti. Sattvam here is a existing entity. So there is no existing entity, yet muktam syat, which is free from evihi, prakriti jaihi, tribhaihi, gunaihi. The three gunas which are born from Prakriti. So everything in creation, everything in the whole universe is born out of Trigunatmika Maya. Therefore, it's not free from Trigunas. And what does Sattvam mean over here? I said any existing entity. And here Shankara clarifies. Sattvam means pranijatam anyatva aprani. Whether it be prani or not a prani. Which means whether it be living or not living. Sentient or non-sentient. Nothing which is born from Maya is free from Trigunas. What is the immediate cause? Panchabhutas. They've got Trigunas. What does Panchabhuta convert into? Pancha Bhautikas, the elementals. They have also got Trigunas. And therefore, Prithivyam, not only with regard to earthly entities, but Divideveshuva, also in regard to gods. Everything on the earth, everything in the heaven also, all are born from Maya only. Apolokas, Orloka, Maharloka, Tapoloka, Satyaloka. You take any lokas. You can extend to even the lower lokas. Every single being is governed by the three gunas. Therefore, our actions, take it the other way around, our thoughts, our words, and our actions. Right? This is how it works. First the thought, then the word, then the actions. All these are governed by three gunas. Why is Krishna saying this? You have to analyze yourself. Figure out what your guna mix is. And then use that analysis to guide your actions appropriately. So nothing is free from the grasp of the three gunas. Okay. Now, Krishna enters into karma also. And remember that in the old days, the guna decided the karma. Okay, in the old days, the guna predominance decided the karma also, which means your work was defined by what your guna classification is. But in today's context, it's not true at all. And therefore, all the more reason for us to understand how this works. Right? So Shankara introduces the next verse with a profound statement. He says, Tatra Sarvasya Triguna Atmakatvat. There in the universe, since everything is in the nature of three gunas only, samsara karanam nivritti anupapattau praptayam. There could be a doubt. There could be a doubt that there is no possibility of eradicating the cause of samsara. He says that since everything consists of three gunas, somebody can have a doubt that it is not possible to eradicate samsara because it is not possible to eradicate the very cause, the three gunas. Therefore, he says three things have to be done. What is that? Number one, it is necessary to show that the removal of this cause of samsara is possible. That is the first one. Number two, the entire Gita Shastram has to be summarized for that purpose. And number three, for those who desire moksha, which is the main purushartha of all the Vedas, all the Shruti and Smriti, right? Moksha. Nothing more is required to be done. Only these two things have to be done. What is that? You have to show that samsara removal is possible. And you have to understand Gita Shastram. And for this purpose only, he says, the next set of slokas is going to begin. And he gives the word. He says, Brahmana, Kshatriya, Visham. The next set of slokas, beginning with this Brahmana, Kshatriya, Visham, is being presented by Lord Krishna. So, now we are going to see that portion. verse number 41. Brahmana-kshatriya-visham
ब्राह्मणक्षत्रियविषाम्
Shudranam cha parantapa
शूद्राणाम् च परन्तप
Karmani pravibhaktani
कर्माणि प्रविभक्तानि
Swabhava prabhavairgunaihi.
स्वभावप्रभवैर्गुणैः
So he's starting another division now, karma. He Parantapa, O Arjuna. Karmani brahmanaha kshatriyaha visham shashudranam. The duties of brahmana, kshatriyas, vishayar means vaishyas. So karmani, the duties, brahmana, kshatriya, vaishya, shudras. Duties of all these four, pravibhaktani, are divided gunaihi, according to the gunas. And what kind of gunas? Swabhava prabhavai, born of your own swabhava. Swabhava here is prakriti, maya shakti. Right. Now, remember that with the last verse, 40th verse, one set of karma and jnana summary is over. Now here, Krishna is again beginning to summarize. So you will find that in this chapter, in different verses, Krishna is summarizing the only two main teachings, karma and jnanam, again and again and again and again, sort of drumming it into our heads. Right? So he says, you can start as a yogi, right? But you have to progress to tyagi, the renunciator, the one who renounces. Because if you remain as a yogi, you will be nothing but a bhogi. And if you remain as bhogi, you will end up as what?
Rogi.
Rogi. It's very famous verse, right? Okay. Now, Krishna has, throughout the Bhagavad Gita, talked about two main sadhanas, Karma Yoga, Jnana Yoga. What is Karma Yoga required for? Chitta Shuddhi. It's a life of activity, mainly focused on the ritualistic mandates of Karma Kanda. And it's supposed to give you Jnana Yogyata, a clean, focused, undisturbed mind, which is called Chitta Shuddhi. Once you have this Chitta Shuddhi, you have to enter a life of withdrawal. So the first is pravritti, life activity. Second is nivritti, life withdrawal. The karma is gradually reduced. And this idea, therefore, let me tell you, this idea is included in the grand plan of Prakriti. The design of Prakriti includes the fact that as you grow older, your karma should be reduced because your knees start to pain, you are no longer energetic. Getting up in the morning is a project. Sitting on the ground is a major project, right? So after 55 to 60 years, the body is not designed for action. The body is designed for withdrawal. So Prakriti itself tells you it's time to withdraw from action and spend more time in contemplation. So here you will find the next uh, 9 verses, 41 to 49. They are a summary of Karma Yoga. Right? Then again he will take up Jnana Yoga after that. So karma was, we said, based on Varna. So Krishna takes this up again. And humanity has been divided into four Varnas. Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, and Shudra. Now, if you look at, there is a grammatical question here, okay? Which is interesting because it's a nice question. But it's more useful for people who are in the understanding little grammar. So if you look at the first line, Brahmana Kshatriya Visham, this is a combined word, right? A combined word is called what in Sanskrit?
Samasa.
Samasa. So Brahmana, Kshatriya, Visham is Samasa, but Shudra Nam is separate. So somebody gets up and asks, why is the first three categories, why are they part of the Samasa? Why could not Shudra be included? Sensible question, right? Because you can actually include Shudra. There is no reason why Shudra cannot be part of Samasa. Why did Krishna separate it? So then, Shankara says, Eka Jatitve Sati. Because the first three are Dvija, born twice. But the last one, Shudras, are not born twice. They're born only once. What is being said?
Upanayam, they have Upanayam.
Upanayam is the second birth, considered the
First
second.
three
Guru.
have the Upanayanam as second birth. The Shudra was not considered eligible for Vedic study, so he has no Upanayan. So because Veda Anadhikara, because Shudras were not considered eligible to study the Vedas, right? Again, I will repeat, this is not by birth, because Krishna himself has said that they are by guna and karma. So a Shudra is a person who, because of the character and the karma, is not eligible to come for Vedic study. This is the interpretation given by Shankara. And we should keep this in mind always when we talk about the Varnas. Varnas are basically based on the character and the karmas. Of course, one more reason is there which somebody else has given. What is the chanda of this verse?
Anushtu.
No, the chanda. If you merge Sudra into chanda into the first samasa, the chanda would be broken. That is another reason. But we should take the reason for what given by Shankara. Okay. Now, what is this classification of the gunas? He says, Swabhava Prabhavai, born out of gunas, or born out of Swabhavaha. What is the Swabhavaha? So Shankara says very clearly, Swabhava is nothing but Maya, Ishvara Prakriti, which is Maya. And therefore, born out of your Swabhava, born from your nature, has to be understood as born from the three gunas of Maya, because that itself is your nature. And among these three gunas, that guna which gives rise to actions like Shamadhi is a Brahmana. Right? Therefore, in other words, a Brahmana is a person where the Sattva guna is predominant. Always, not always, predominant, right? Because the gunas themselves, we saw in the 14th chapter, they come and go. Because if you didn't have tamas, you would never be able to sleep. Therefore, in the classification which we talked about in the 14th chapter, the Brahmana is SRT. Sattvika predominant, Rajasika second place, Tamasika third place. What about Kshatriya? All this is there in Shankaracharya's Bhashyam. I am just giving you the English versions of it, right? Kshatriya Swabhava is based on Sattva, which is dominated by Rajas. Right? Sattva, which gets dominated by Rajas. That is called Kshatriya Swabhava. In our words, in our language, in the 14th chapter, it is RST. Rajas first, then Sattva, then Tamas. Therefore, Rajas dominates Sattva. Then Vaishya. Vaishya is Tamas, which is dominated by Rajas. So here we should clearly remember the distinction. Rajas, Sattva, Tamas. Rajas dominates Sattva. Sattva is stronger than Tamas, is Kshatriya. But where Rajas dominates Tamas, And tamas dominates sattva, RTS. That is Vaishya. And Shudra, of course, is TRS. Tamas dominates Rajas, and Rajas dominates Sattva. So this definition we saw in 14th chapter. There we didn't talk about where it came from. Shankara Bhashyam itself contains all this, right? And then Shankara says that there are all these different characteristics of each varna can be classified under one word each. Prashanta, Aishwarya, Iha, and Mudha. So what Prashanta is contentment, Aishwarya is overlordship, Iha, then Iha is the desire, and Mudha is dullness. So one word he has compressed the entire definition of all the varnas. And then again Shankara gives another definition for Swabhava. He says Swabhava refers to the karmic actions of previous lives, which are manifest in the current life in the form of actions, which are known as vasanas. The karmic tendency of a previous life, which influences the karta of this life, that is called Swabhava. Ultimately, if you compare the earlier definition also, you will find that it is nothing but the vasana, which is triguna of Maya only. It's all a Maya as the source. So here, there is a difference in the definition of guna. Guna is taken as vasanas, which influence the karma of this life, the karta of this life. While we can also take guna as Maya karya, products of Maya. So there is a Purusa Shuktam verse. Brahmano asya mukham asita bahu rajanya kritaha guru tadasya yad vaishyaha padbhyam shudro ajayataha. Says Brahmano asya mukham asita. The head is like the Brahmana. Why? Because it takes care of perception, sattvic activities, knowledge activities. Bahu rajanya kritaha. The hands are like the Raja, the Kshatriya, because it takes care of what? Defense, administration, activity. And Uru Tadasya Yad Vaishya. Thighs are like the Vaishya because thighs support the individual to stand. And Padbhyam Shudro Ajayataha. The legs are like the Shudra, but the legs have no activity of their own. They obey the orders. But remember that all these definitions notwithstanding, we cannot say that any one profession is superior to the other. All four professions are equally sacred, and these were prescribed for the four varnas, not caste, for the four varnas, based on the guna karma classification, the swabhava. So, where was it said? Chatur varnyam maya sishtam guna karma bhagasha. I have divided them into guna and karma, not on the basis of birth. So the question arises that how should I choose my profession? So number one, if you have a love for a particular profession, which means that you're inclined towards a profession, which means since that inclination is your internal, it means it is guna based. It is because of the guna that you will like that profession. For example, I want to do research. Right? Research requires what? a lot of focus of mind. And if I love that, then my predominant guna is sattvic. That is one way. Right? You can choose the profession based on your guna. Then there is a more practical choice of, based on your family. Like your father is a doctor, so you're a doctor. Or your father is a politician, so you're a politician. That's second way. And the third one is, which is very common today. What is that? Whatever profession pays me the most, I will do that. Even though it might contradict my gunas. Right? The problem is, that in the teaching of Shastram, there is no money. So if everybody goes by this, Shastram will die out. What does Shastram recommend? First is guna-based choice. Right? If it is really guna-based, you will find that the salary doesn't bother you too much because you love what you do. You enjoy doing what you do. You will spend hours in it. And your family will ask you, what are you doing so much for? What does it give you? But you will not be bothered. You won't want the salary much. You won't want to be recognized. But it's a very rare happiness. As a karta itself, you are happy. You don't wait for the karma phalam. Whatever karma phalam you get, if that makes you happy, that's a bonus. But as a karta, if you are happy, it's a very rare happiness. Like Gita teaching, teaching Gita, teaching Upanishads. The teacher who derives happiness from that act of teaching, from the karma itself, that is for him is primary happiness. And if the students understand what you are talking about, well, that's a bonus, right? That also gives you happiness. But your basic happiness is what? That you are able to carry out Krishna's work. Okay. So we will look at verse number 42. Shamodamastapa shaucham
Tamodamastapassocham
Shaucham.
Shantir arjavam evacha
Shantir Arjava
Shantirajava
Evacha
Evacha.
Jnanam vijnanam astikyam
Jnanam
Jnanam
Vijnanam
Vijnanam
Astikyam
Astikyam.
Dhamma karma swabhavajam
Brahma Karma Swabhavajam
Swabhavajam.
Shamaha Damaha Tapaha Shaucha. These don't need explanation. Shamaha Damaha. Shamaha is control of the mind. Damaha is control over your sense organs. Tapaha, austerity. Shaucham, cleanliness. Then Shantihi, patience. Arjavam, alignment of your thoughts, words, and actions, which can be called as straightforwardness. Then Jnanam, knowledge. And here he uses the word Vijnanam. So Jnanam is knowledge. Vijnanam has to be understood as that knowledge which has been completely assimilated. And Astikyam. Astikyam means you're Astika, you have faith in Shastra. These are Brahma, Karma, Swabhavajam. These are duties of the Brahmanas born out of their own nature, which is Sattvika predominant. So, the Brahmana is meant to teach, right? His basic qualification, his basic duty is to teach. And if he is to be a good teacher, he should follow the adage of practice what you preach. Right? And therefore, there's a definition. Achinoti, acharati, acharayati, iti acharya. Achinoti, acharati, acharayati, acharayati, iti acharya. Achinoti, the one who gains knowledge, accumulates knowledge through study. Acharati, he lives his life in accordance with that knowledge. And acharayati, acharayati means to teach. So first he gains the knowledge by study of Shastram. He lives his life in accordance with the study of Shastram. And then he teaches Shastram. Such a person alone is a Acharya. And remember that for a person who is this kind of an Acharya, a simple life is a must. And the Brahmana has to have certain qualities. And for this, Krishna outlines Kshamaha, mind restraint. Right? Mind restraint means so that you don't get carried away by your emotions. Right? I can choose whether to act upon my thoughts or not. Mano nigraha is shamaha. And Anandagiri in his commentary says shamaha is antakarana upashamaha. Means the withdrawal of the antakarana from the sense objects. Then the next one is damaha, sense control. He should not indulge in excessive sense pleasures. Why excessive? Because as a grihastha, he is allowed to have certain amount of sense pleasures, but he should follow samaha, shamaha, and damaha, and not be excessively indulging in sensations. Anandagiri writes a very nice commentary. Damaha, bahya, karana, uparasthi. He is withdrawing the organs from external objects. So basically, withdrawing the mind. But withdrawing the Bahya Karana means what? Withdrawing the sense organ itself. So even if you are in front of a sense organ, a sense object, you just withdraw the sense organ. That is Damaha. We have already seen all this in Tattvabodha, additional commentaries only. So Shankara here gives a brief commentary. He says the meaning has already been discussed. Now, he says that and leaves it. But where have we discussed? See, I've given you the definition, the discussion by Anandagiri, right? But Shankara simply says this has already been discussed. Where have we discussed? Dama, Shama, all this has been discussed already. When? Where?
Prajna Chaturshi.
13th chapter.
Buddhirjnanasammohaha, Shama satyam dama shamaha, Sukham dukkham bhavo bhavaha, Chabhayam bhayam chabhayam evacha. Where? Tension. Okay. Then the next one is tapaha, austere life. These are all qualifications of the Brahman, of the Acharya, of the Brahmana. Possessions are kept minimum, comforts are minimum, a simple life, which we call aparigraha, not wanting too many possessions. And again, Andagiri says, Trividam tapaha. 3 types of tapahas are involved. And again, Shankara says, Yatoktam, already discussed. Where chapter 17, 3 types of Saucham was discussed. Purity at the level of thought, word, and deed. And chapter 13 also. So purity, external, internal, both are necessary. Internal purity is managing or eliminating as far as possible strong passions like anger, hate. And what is the method we used? Pratipaksha bhavana. You think of something which is opposing, right? So it's like having a bath. It's not just enough to have a physical bath every day. You have to have a mental bath probably 4-5 times a day. Right? And one way of doing this is to let people be as they are. One source of great disturbances when we do not like the person we see in front of me, especially if there's your spouse and children, and you try to change them. They are not going to change. Only if you let that person be what he is without resentment will your mind be free of disturbance. Then Kshantihi. Kshantihi is basically the capacity to, not the peace over here. Shantihi, that is Sh. This Sh. Shantihi, which is equal to Shama. Shama. Shama is what? The ability to endure a situation which is unpleasant without complaining, without a mental disturbance. The physical disturbance should not be translated into your mind. That is Kshantihi, also called Kshama. Then Arjavam, this we said earlier, activity of the thought, the tongue, the mind, the tongue, and the actions. That is the thoughts, the words, and the actions should all be aligned. That is Arjava. Right? It doesn't mean that whatever I am thinking, I should say. That is again another very, very incorrect interpretation. Honesty. You don't need to say whatever you think, but whatever you say and whatever you do must be aligned with your thinking. Whatever you say should be in alignment with your thoughts. Whatever you do should be alignment with your words. And then jnanam and vijnanam. So here we have to look at chapter 7. Jnanam is knowing Brahman as Jagat Karanam. Knowing that Brahman, who is Jagat Karanam, as myself, is Vijnana. Very important distinction. Jnanam is knowing that Brahman is Jagat Karanam. But knowing that Brahman, who is Jagat Karanam, as none other than myself, that's Vijnana. Then Astikyam. Astikyam is very, very simple. Faith in the Shastra as a means of understanding the non-material world, spiritual world. All these are Brahma Karmaha, or karma of the Brahmin. The Brahmin is by birth or by guna. And Shankara adds here that this Brahmin is a person who is a human being who is born, not Nirguna Brahma. Don't think that these duties are of Nirguna Brahma. They are of Saguna Brahmin. And these duties are based on the character of the person as per his guna mix. So with this, we'll stop for today. Any questions?
Sir, Shanti differs from Titiksha. Endurance, forbearance.
You can say it's more or less the same, yes. Different words. Idea is to be able to bear disturbances without mental disturbance. Bear physical disturbances without mental disturbances.
Okay, thank
Om Acharya.
Yeah.
Acharya, Vaishya is also dominated by tamas, dominated by rajas, and Shudra is also the same or is different?
No. In Vaishya, tamas is first, rajas is second. Sorry, sattva is second.
That's what. Okay. Yeah.
And in Vaishya, I mean, in Shudra, it is other way around.
Tamas rajas. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. So with this, we'll stop for today. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnam Eva Vashishyate Om Shanti 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 Om Tat Sat Om Namah Shivaya.
Thank you.
Thank you.